We are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Near Mint Condition. And today we have a very special guest. I am Dom, by the way. Just wanted to introduce him before we get all of the parties rolling. He is the mastermind behind Gargoyles, Spectacular Spider-Man, the only Marvel show when I watched as a kid, and Young Justice. And now he is reuniting the Gargoyles with the Fantastic Four in a crossover for the ages. I am, of course, joined by today and very happy to have Greg Weisman himself chat with me. Hope, how are you doing today?
I am good. How are you, Dom?
Life is good. Life is going well. But most importantly, I mean, I'm just super glad to be able to not only to talk to you about the upcoming book that you have, but man, I think we got a lot to chat, Greg, and whatnot. Before we just get things started, I just wanted to ask, like, how you got into the fandom. How did you get into comics? Was it something that you grew up with? How did that call come about?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up reading comics, back when you could get them at the dime store on newsstands and stuff like that, before there was any sort of comic book stores or anything like that. Certainly before you could get them online, because there was no online. And you know, I sort of grew up with that, and every little bit of superhero that made it to television or movies. We were desperate for in those days. Now we've got a glut of it. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But back in the day, there was Batman starring Adam West, and
Mhm.
the occasional cartoon, and that was pretty much it. And so it's great to be in a world where the geeks have inherited the earth.
Are you surprised that it's by any chance, exploded, since I would say 2008, right, with Dark Knight and Iron Man, and since then it's just been everywhere you go, like you can't avoid superheroes.
I obviously I always thought there was a lot of potential in superhero media, and um, it was just about convincing the powers that be. Um, and So I wouldn't say I'm surprised, because it was always sort of ripe for the taking. Uh, but it doesn't make it automatically good. Some of the stuff is good, some of it isn't. But it always has the potential there, I think, and a fan base that wants to see it.
For sure, and obviously Gargoyles was one of the the more early projects that you had going on. And before we obviously get into the crossover book that you're going to be writing and coming out, and not too soon, my question to you would be, how did you pitch Gargoyles? How did that come about? Was it something that just in the 90s you said, well, first off, I guess, how did you get, sort of into the TV business? And then how did you come about with the pitch to create a super awesome 90s show?
Um, in the uh, 80s, I was working at DC Comics as uh, a ultimately as an associate editor. I was started as an editorial assistant, which is a glorified title for Xerox boy, and then I became an assistant editor and then an associate editor, and I was also freelance writing, co-writing a title called Captain Adam. Um, and I had a writing partner on Captain Adam named Carrie Bates.
Hmm.
And Carrie knew a guy named Roger Slifer who was working for Sunbow Animation. And Roger let us pitch on a number of different Sunbow shows. And Carrie and I eventually sold an episode of Gem and the Holograms called Video Wars. And that was my first television credit. We wrote the script for that. Um, and I was like, wow, I'm a TV writer and I've got a credit on screen, and that'll lead to all these big things. And it led to absolutely nothing, not even a
Hmm.
second episode of Gem. But that was sort of my first foray into television. And then I left DC and back home to Los Angeles. That's where I'm from. And eventually got a job at Walt Disney TV Animation as a staff assistant, which is a not very glorified title for
Mm.
a development associate. And I worked my way up to director of series development and came up with this idea for a show based on Gargoyles. It was the 90s, and the buzzword in the 90s was edgy. Everything needed to be edgy. And I was a big fan of another show uh, created by a guy named Jim Magon called Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears. And I thought it was sort of really cool show with this rich backstory set in medieval times. And I very consciously set out to create a show like Gummy Bears, but edgier. So my team and I created this comedy adventure series. And we did two things to make it edgier. One, instead of it being about cute little multicolored bears, sort of teddy bear-esque characters, we made our show about cute little multicolored gargoyles, little monsters. And the second thing is, instead of setting it in this sort of vague pastoral medieval past, we would have that rich medieval backstory, but we would put the gargoyles to sleep for 1,000 years and wake them up in modern day, that is 1994 Manhattan, which was, again, edgier. So we pitched this show, comedy adventure show, to Michael Eisner, who at the time was the chairman of the Walt Disney Company, and he didn't like it. He passed on it. But my boss, my immediate boss, a guy named Gary Kreisel, thought there was something interesting in the idea still, and he told me to keep working on it. So I showed the pitch, the comedy pitch, to a few people, including a guy named Tad Stones, the creator of Darkwing Duck. And Tad had seen an early animatic of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. So he said, instead, you've got this human character who's helping all the little gargoyles out. Instead of having all these little gargoyles, what if you had one big gargoyle? And this really resonated with me because, again, my background was superheroes, not funny animals. So we didn't get rid of all the little gargoyles, but we created a new character. An artist named Greg Guler and I created the character of Goliath. And we put the whole show through the prism of Goliath and came out the other end fundamentally with the show that you've seen on television or read in comic books. And that was Gargoyles. And so we came up with this big pitch for Gargoyles, this new dramatic action show for Gargoyles with all these characters, the pack and the mutates and all this stuff in it that, again, ended up being in the show. But it was this huge pitch because we had all these ideas. We were really running with it. And I pitched that to Michael Eisner, and he passed. He didn't like it. And the next day, we had what we called a post-mortem meeting with Jeffrey Katzenberg. And Jeffrey said, "You're going to keep working on Gargoyles." And I said, "Well, no, I pitched it as a comedy and it got killed. And I pitched it as a drama and it got killed. I don't know what else to do with it." He's like, "Oh, no, it didn't get killed. Michael just thought it needed more work." Now, I had been in the room the previous day, and I know Michael did not say that. He just was like, "No, I don't like it." But this meant that Jeffrey liked it. And I know that I found out later that my boss, Gary, had also talked to Jeffrey about the fact that we needed to do some different things in the Disney afternoon so that it didn't all feel same. And all we had there for the most part was funny animals. So Jeffrey encouraged us to keep going. And I went back to the drawing board for the third time with my team. And we looked at that pitch and we looked at the show. And I said, there's nothing wrong with this show. The problem is the pitch. We put too much in the pitch. It got distracting. You couldn't tell what it was about. So we cut all this stuff from the pitch. We really focused. By this time, Beauty and the Beast had come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've heard, but it was kind of a hit for the Disney company.
Right.
So we really focused the pitch on Goliath and Elisa, that relationship, and trimmed all stuff that eventually was in the show, but cut it out of the pitch because it was distracting. And we went in for a third time to pitch to Eisner, this time with a much leaner, tighter pitch focused on Goliath and Elisa. And this time he bought it. And at the end of that meeting, Jeffrey turned to me and said, "You'd added a lot to that, didn't you?" And of course, I'd added nothing. All I'd done was cut. But I turned to him and said, "Yes, I did." And that was the story of how we sold Gargoyles.
That is crazy. Does Michael know that you went in and actually didn't cut anything? You just made the pitch more concise and more palatable for him?
I don't know. I mean, it's not like Eisner and I sit down for lunch all the time. I haven't seen him since one or both of us left the company. And I moved over to produce Gargoyles, so I stopped going to those meetings. But he was always a huge supporter of the show. I'll say that. Once he got on board, he got on board, and everyone got on board, or they got out of the way, because that was the power. Eisner was kind of like the last of the Hollywood moguls, and if he said we're doing it, then everyone got on board and we were doing it. It was not decision by committee in those days. After Eisner stepped back, it became decision by committee, and it became a nightmare. But in those days, I didn't realize how good we had it. Eisner said yes or Eisner said no, and it was frustrating when he said no. But when he said yes, we had all the support of the Walt Disney machine behind us.
That is crazy to think about, that you had the one person who was just like this end all be all. And obviously the shows come out. I know a lot of people in my comic shop still love that show to death. And now it's back at Dynamite, with the license and all that. So how did that, if I may, come about with bringing it over to Dynamite?
Honestly, you'd have to ask Dynamite. Dynamite got a Disney license. We're not the only Disney thing they do. They do Darkwing Duck. They do Lilo and Stitch. They've done various Disney villains and a whole bunch of other stuff that's pretty exciting. And so an editor at Dynamite, a guy named Nate Cosby, called me. And it was, the kind of conversation you see on sitcoms, where he's like, "So Greg, we really want you to write this Gargoyles comic." And I was like, "Oh man, I'd love to do that." And he's like, "No, hear me out. I'd really like you to do this, and you're really the only guy I have on my list to do." I'm like, Nate, I'm in. He's like, "No, before you say no." I'm like, "Nate, I did not say no." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "I want to do it. Let me do it." And so I don't know how they got the license. You'd have to ask them, but I'm sure that was some kind of business arrangement, some conversation. But they came to me and said, "Do you want to do Gargoyles?" I said yes, and that's the whole story from my point of view.
All right, more than fair. And not only you were getting back to do in the show that, I mean, you've got a lot of connections with. Obviously, you don't need me to say that. You're gonna also be writing the Fantastic Four alongside them. Was that the sort of like pitch? I know that at least for the last year or so, we've heard a lot of companies, obviously, the big two with Marvel and DC, doing some of their crossovers and whatnot, and now we have Marvel now doing a crossover with Gargoyles. So, how did that pitch come? Was that the same? Like, I'm going to write whatever Gargoyle story that they want me to.
A little bit. I got word from Nate that Dynamite and Marvel were going to do a crossover with Gargoyles and something, and they asked me, "What would you like to do? What Marvel property do you want to cross Gargoyles over with?" And I said, "Well, right now I'm writing the Spectacular Spider-Man for Marvel, which was both Pete and Miles teaming up, and that was a monthly book. It's since unfortunately been canceled, but at the time we were doing pretty well, and I said, "Well, let's just cross that over. Let's do Gargoyles and Spider-Man." And word came back, "No, can't do Spider-Man." And I said, "Okay, how about X-Men? Because There's a lot of parallels between
Mm-hmm.
Gargoyles and mutants and that kind of thing. And he came back, no, it can't be X-Men. And I said, okay, stop. I love all the Marvel characters. Instead of me guessing, why don't you just tell me what it is you want to cross over? The odds are very good that I'm going to say yes and want to do it. And so they came back to me and said Fantastic Four. And I think there were obviously a few things going into the choice of Fantastic Four. One was obviously the movie coming out, and the second was I'd written Ben and Johnny,
Mm-hmm.
the Thing and the Human Torch as guest characters in Spectacular Spider-Man. And I obviously did a semi-decent job on that because then Tom Brevoort contacted me and said, hey, do you want to do a Fantastic Four story for Fantastic Four Fanfare?
Mm-hmm.
I said, sure. I did that story. It turned out pretty well. Everyone seemed pleased with it. I'm certainly pleased with it. It just came out a couple weeks ago. And short little 11-page story, lovely little story, but I think it gave everybody the confidence that I knew how to write the FF. And for me, when they said, how about Gargoyles FF, I was like, great, because to me, FF is the first family of the Marvel Universe, and the Manhattan Clan is the first family of the Gargoyle Universe. And in fact, going back to Eisner, there's a point in a meeting with Eisner, and this is in, I don't know, 93 or 94 or something like that, so years and years before Disney bought Marvel. I mean, over a decade before Disney bought Marvel. I was in a room with a bunch of people, a bunch of executives, and Michael Eisner said, I want to buy Marvel. And I watched in that, I got very excited, and then I watched as in the room as everyone talked him out of it. Told him, and you know, Marvel was in bankruptcy, so he could have gotten it for pennies on the dollar, you know. But they said, no, you don't want it. It's a mess. It's a huge mess. You want it because you want to make a Spider-Man movie, but they've double, triple sold the rights to Spider-Man. You won't be able to make Spider-Man. Sony has it. All these different companies think they have it. You want to do Fantastic Four, but you can't do that either. And you'll be left doing like B heroes like Iron Man and Hulk and Captain America, characters you don't even care about. And they talked him out of it. I sat there and watched as they talked him out of it. And then, of course, you know, 15 years later or so, Bob Iger buys Marvel and it costs billions of dollars to buy, whereas Eisner could have gotten it for next to nothing.
Right.
But in that meeting, Eisner said, well, okay, well, still got this problem. He's like, Warner Brothers has the DC characters like Superman and Batman, and Disney, we've got a hole in that market, those action characters. We need a Disney action universe. And he turned to me and he said, could we make Gargoyles the start of a Disney action universe? And I said yes, and I meant it because we could take Gargoyles the way Stan and Jack took the Fantastic Four and made it the basis for the whole Marvel universe that grew up around it. And I said we could take the Manhattan Clan of Gargoyles, create all these other heroes, all these other concepts. And we did some of that in season 2. We did all these backdoor pilots, Pendragon, New Olympians. We had ideas for a prequel series, Dark Ages, which we've since done as a comic, for a sequel series that eventually became known as Gargoyles 2198. Time Dancer. We had all these ideas for series set in the quote-unquote Gargoyles universe, with the Manhattan Clan as the first family, the way the Fantastic Four was. So flash forward to, I don't know, 9 months ago or whatever it was, and they pitched me Fantastic Four with Gargoyles. I said, great, that's perfect. We've got 2 families, both living in skyscrapers in Manhattan. One is the Baxter Building in Midtown Manhattan, and the other is the Erie Building on Central Park South. And I said, this is perfect. And so we wrote, we did a little 4-page preview that showed up in Demona Zero on Free Comic Book Day back in May. Just that showing three of the Gargoyles, Lex, Broadway, and Angela, meeting the Fantastic Four. And now we've got a book coming out with that Marvel's publishing with Fantastic Four meets the Gargoyles. And then 1 month later, we've got a book that Dynamite's publishing, Gargoyles meets the Fantastic Four. And all three of these stories are in continuity with each other.
Okay. You've clearly put a lot of work and thought into just the structure and making sure that everything is still continuity based with all of these other stories and with the story that you've been telling for a decent while now.
Yeah. I don't want to overstate it. It's not that Fantastic Four is part of Gargoyles' normal continuity or vice versa. But somewhere there is a universe where both the Gargoyles and the Fantastic Four live together in Manhattan. And these three stories, the little tidbit in Demona Zero, and these two stories, one from Marvel, one from Dynamite, all take place in that universe. And as much as possible, that continuity from both series is preserved as we go into this little pocket world to do this crossover.
That sounds
and then immediately after that, I come out with from the sublime to the ridiculous. Tad Stones and I are doing a Gargoyles Darkwing Duck crossover, which is again, Darkwing's not normally part of the Gargoyles universe, but here in this little corner, we're going to do Gargoyles and Darkwing as if they all exist in the same universe.
You took the question right out of my mouth because I know that you'd mentioned Darkwing Duck and Ted obviously earlier. And I was going to be like, man, are we going to get, these two franchises and characters crossing over? But it seems like you already have plans for that. And the tease there, yeah.
I've written it's a 4-issue miniseries. I've written all 4 issues. I've also, the Fantastic Four issues are almost done. I wrote my part months ago, and the art is all done. And I think they're being lettered and colored. Most of the coloring's done, I think, and most of the lettering's done. But they're all but ready to pop out. The Darkwing stuff, I think, issue 1's completely done. Issue 2 is probably most of the way done, and I finished the scripts for 3 and 4. Tad co-plotted it with me, and he's doing some covers, I think it's a lot of fun, looking great. So we've got these two kind of kooky crossovers, Fantastic Four and then Darkwing. The real trick would be Gargoyles, Darkwing, and Fantastic Four all in the same comic. That would really be
good. You would crush that book, though, I'd think.
It'd be fun, that's for sure. A lot of characters, though.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned earlier, too, and I've been reading some of your Spectacular Spider-Man series. Part of it was the attraction of, not only you coming on, but also Humberto Ramos, who, in my mind, is one of the most influential 2000s, even overall, Spidey artists ever. And you also had a chance to write the 2-in-1 in that book. And how would you say you writing those two characters was very just how important it was, I guess, to have that foundation set so you could write, not only them two, but also Reed and Sue together as well?
I'm sorry, which two characters you're talking about?
Ben and Johnny.
Oh, Ben and Johnny. It was fun putting Ben and Johnny's guest stars in a couple issues of Spectacular. Actually, I think 3 issues. And they had a nice little rapport. I mean, obviously, I've been reading Fantastic Four since, frankly, way before you were born, Dom. And so, I feel like I've got a good handle on the 4 of them. I certainly know what my platonic Fantastic Four and their relationship is like, and their dynamics between them. And so adding them first to the Spider-Man books and then adding them in with Gargoyles, that was just pure pleasure for me. It was just a lot of fun. I mean, for me, I've always thought this, and it's sort of heartening to see it catching up everywhere as well, is that, the true badass from a superhero standpoint among those 4 is Sue. She's the one who whose power set is just
Off the chart.
yeah, unstoppable. And Stan and Jack didn't always write her that way,
Mm.
admittedly. But once you think about it for more than 10 seconds, you sort of see, oh my God, this is the one who's really got the chops here. The other three have great powers. They're tons of fun. But once you sort of orient the book to Sue, it becomes pretty damn easy to write. Particularly once you think in terms of her as being a mom, what her priorities are. She's a superhero second. She's a mom first. And that, I've read a lot of great writers and a lot of great artists, editors, etc., doing Fantastic Four, and some of it I've liked better than others, but it still all comes around to sort of getting to the core of the characters. That's what I've always done on shows like Spectacular Spider-Man or Young Justice or whatever. Anytime you're adapting something that someone else created, it's all about getting down to what's the core of these characters, and then trying to bring that out. So you sort of strip away the nonsense or the things that don't necessarily work, and you get down to the core of it, and then try and really bring that up, bring that out. And again, these characters are so well characterized from day one, from Stan and Jack, that it makes your job pretty easy.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just watching through Spectacular Spidey as a kid, and like even looking back on it now when I did a rewatch back a couple of years ago, and I'm watching that series, and I'm like, every single bit and piece of it feels like you ripped it out of a page that Ditko drew or that Ramita Senior drew. Like that's what it felt like to me. And at some point too, like I'm thinking, and I'm like, talking to you, like, would you have loved to put the Fantastic Four in a future season of Spectacular Spidey, where that to be a thing?
We had originally planned to put Johnny in season one, and then they wouldn't let us for legal reasons. I don't want to make it sound like it was creative reasons. Everyone loved the idea, but just contracts didn't allow for the Fantastic Four to be in the book. But yeah, the plan was to have Johnny start appearing in season one, because I always loved back in the day those the Peter Parker Johnny Storm relationship. I always thought it was fantastic, and
No pun intended.
and so we had to lose that. Unfortunately, some of what we were going to do in that story, we ended up doing in an episode in season two, where Peter goes to Flash Thompson's birthday party. But we were originally going to make that a party with Johnny Storm there in season one. And then when Johnny got pulled, we pushed the party out of season one and ended up doing it in season two without Johnny. But it would have been great. I never wanted to make Spectacular Spider-Man sort of guest star of the week. Like every week, here's Captain America, here's the Hulk, here's the X-Men. I didn't want to do that ever. But we did sort of have ideas to bring in other characters. I definitely had an idea for the Hulk and for Captain America, obviously for Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. There were ways we felt like it worked, like once a season, to bring in another big Marvel hero in one way or another, and we just never got approval to do that, and that was too bad. And then of course the show ended, which was really too bad. But it would have been nice, and yeah, I had planned from day one to do that Johnny Storm, Peter Parker relationship, and I was glad then that I was able to do it in the comic Spectacular Spider-Man, to get a little, the book's focused on the relationship between Pete and Miles, but to get a little bit of that Pete Johnny flavor, bring Ben in with Johnny and Miles in with Pete, and we had some fun with that. It was good.
That sounds fun. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the relationship that you brought over, with that book as well.
Plus, Johnny had that dopey mustache.
Yeah.
And it was like I said to my editor, "There's no way Pete's not going to make fun of that mustache," and he's like, "Go for it." So he called it a blonde caterpillar on his upper lip or something.
Good old classic Peter Parker. Before we get back to the Gargoyles and Fantastic Four, but could I ask what inspired you to set Spectacular Spider-Man, the TV show, with Peter Parker still in high school, as opposed to college or out as an adult or anything else?
I just wanted to get back to basics. So that's what I pitched to Marvel and Sony from day one. I said, Peter is 16 years old. He's a junior in high school. He is absolutely, positively, completely in love with whatever girl happens to be standing in front of him at any given moment. I said that it's about hormones. It's not about, ultimate love in high school for it's not Gwen. It's not Mary
Liz.
Jane. It's not Liz. It's not Sally. It's not Betty. It's not Black Cat. It's who's ever literally in front of him at any given moment. And I said the whole show is the education of Peter Parker. It's about what he's learning in school. He's got this college internship. What does he learn there? And as Spider-Man, what is he learning about being a hero? And so I pitched the idea that we're not going to do the origin right out of the gate. Everyone's seen the big Sam Raimi movie fairly recently back then. They all know what the origin is. So we'll save that. We'll do a version of it down the road in episode 12 or 11 or something. But here in the beginning, we'll say he's been Spider-Man for the summer. He got bitten by the spider at the end of his sophomore year of high school. Now he spent the summer as Spider-Man. Now it's his junior year. And he feels like a totally different person. He was this nerdy kid freshman and sophomore year. Now he's Spider-Man. But the problem is that everyone around him still thinks he's this nerdy kid. They don't know. And he can't tell them that he's Spider-Man. And also, over the summer, he's stopped a mugging here, a mugging there, a purse snatching there. There was one bank robbery that he stopped that he felt pretty psyched about, but he hasn't faced any supervillains at all. So that begins here in episode 1 as well. And so it's a learning curve. It's a very steep learning curve for Peter, both as Spider-Man and in his own life. Still adjusting to Uncle Ben's death. And figuring out that his aunt's having financial problems and how can he help with that. And all this stuff. He had a lot going on. And that to me was Peter Parker. I mean, Peter Parker's archetype goes back to the archetype of the everyman. Someone we all can relate to. There are all sorts of different archetypes in superheroes. It's rich in that, but for Peter, it was the everyman archetype. And so this guy has girl problems, he has money problems, all the stuff that Stan used to talk about in the 60s and 70s, still true in the 2008s, and so we just decided we were doing, 1963 set in 2008. So we would update it with cell phones and that kind of thing. But fundamentally, we were going back to the Lee Ditko and Lee Romita senior years. And we'd pull from wherever. We pulled Venom from the 90s and stuff from the movies and wherever. If there was a good idea, we were fine with using it. But the tone of the thing was going to be the tone of Lee Ditko or Lee Romita. And it was going to have that feel that made everyone fall in love with Spider-Man in the very first place.
I'm telling you, Drake, like little Dom was, jumping up, down in joy whenever a new episode came out because I couldn't wait to see, what was going to happen.
That doesn't make me feel old at all.
I apologize for that, sir. But just sort of to bring it back to the
Calling me
Fantastic.
sir really makes me feel old.
Well, pardon me, pardon me. But yeah, to bring it back sort of to the Fantastic Four and gargoyles of it all. I'm looking at some of the and like you mentioned, like Marvel will be distributing the Fantastic Four Gargoyles one shot, and the Dynamite will be distributing the Gargoyles Fantastic one shot. Kind of similar to how DC and Marvel are doing their own crossover. Uh, I'm really, I'm looking at a lot of the covers, and a lot of them have the Fantastic Four in their all blue uniforms. Was that a decision that you wanted to make? Was that your favorite Fantastic Four costume, so to speak?
Probably. I mean, I also was fond of what John Byrne did with the dark blue and white um, thing that came out of the negative zone
Mm-hmm.
back in the, was it the 90s or
Yeah,
the
late '80s, early
80s or
'90s. Yeah.
something? I liked that version too. I certainly liked it at the time. It was very striking, um, sort of twist on the original costumes. Um, but second to that, the dark blue and white, I think that the light blue and sort of royal blue and black, that classic look is it. But nobody asked me. I mean, they were just sort of telling us um, what costumes to use, and I'm fine with that. You know, we want to be in continuity and or at least feel like we're not really in
Mhm.
continuity, but feel like we're in continuity. And if that's what they're wearing, then that's fine with me.
Okay.
Uh, there's some, I think, kind of dumbass, goofy costumes that have bounced around in and over the years, but you know, the classic uh, sort of union suits for the FF were just great for me.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the answer there. Um, How has it been like, working with? I think Enid Balam is on, the Marvel one, and then it's George Kambadias who's on, the Dynamite one. How's it been like, working, back and forth? I know that you had mentioned earlier that the art's mostly finished or has been, but yeah, how's the collaboration been?
It's been great. George and I have been working together since Gargoyles #1, which is what, like 2023? I don't know. Lost all track of time since the pandemic. Um, yeah, I think it was 23. George and I have been working together since then, and I love George's stuff, and he does great work. And I know George is a massive Spider-Man fan, so the
Mm,
chance for him to do any Marvel characters was big for him. And So that was fun. And I had not met Balam before. He and I ran into each other down at Comic Con. I was with my daughter, uh, you know, in July, and um, he had started the book, and I'd seen some of the pages, but not all of them. I think he did a fantastic, just a truly fantastic job. And collaborating with both of them was great. You know, 98% of what they do is great right out of the gate. Every once in a while, there's something where I'm going, "Hey, this is terrific," but I really need to see this character here. Um, because this is the focus character for this panel or this page or something like that, and you put that character off panel. I need to see him or her, um, and they're both guys who just go, "Great, I can fix that," and they do quick. And you know, I'd rather not be a guy who has to say, "Hey, I need a change." But when you need it, you need it, and it's nice to have people who get it and cooperate and aren't sort of telling you
mhm.
this cannot be changed, you know, kind of thing. And I have the same relationship right now with Frank Parr on Gargoyles Demona. Issue 3 of Gargoyles Demona just came out this past week, and we got issue 4 next month, or this month actually. I'm not sure. I guess next month.
Mhm.
Of our 5-issue miniseries, and Frank and I produced the Gargoyles television show together back in the '90s. We were co-showrunners on that show, so to have him penciling and inking Gargoyles Demona with me is fantastic. But it's the same thing. we had this one issue coming up where there were these two brothers, and Frank drew the kept mixing up which brother was which. And I'm really sorry, but I need you to switch. These brothers aren't interchangeable. You need to switch to the other one. And but again, Frank's great. He makes those fixes when I need them. But most of the time, what he's giving me, again, like 98% of the time, what he's giving me is fantastic right out of the gate.
That is such a delight to hear that you are having fun. Everybody seems like they're having fun with their books, which is one of the most important things of the process. And speaking of that process, you had mentioned to me earlier that you were working on Captain Adam. I guess the character that I think a lot of people for like the last 20 years just decides this character needs to blow up when convenient, but I think he's a much cooler character than that. And obviously you're working, have been working on comics, and you've also produced scripts and whatnot for TV shows. So my question is, what would you say is, besides obviously the difference in between, how both scripts are done, the difference between producing a script for television versus producing a script for the comic book?
There isn't much of a difference. The the main thing, my process is basically the same. I mean, television, you've got a lot more people involved. You know, on a comic book, I'm answering to the editor, maybe one person at Disney's giving notes on a Gargoyle comic or something like that. But it's in television, you may have lots and lots of people giving notes to you. But the basic, process is the same. The main thing I think is different is the unit of measure, and by that I mean certainly most of my career in television until streaming came up, you had to think in terms of commercial breaks. So every act of a TV episode in between commercial breaks, had to have rising action, get you up to a point where when the commercial hits, you're on some kind of cliffhanger. I'm not either literal or just a moment of suspense or a shocking revelation or something, that tells its own story with a beginning, middle, and end, but makes the audience want to sit through that commercial and stick with you and be back when the commercial's over. And the unit of measure for a comic book to me is the page, the single page. Every page has to have its own unity, tell its own story. Because you need the reader to want to go, yeah, I got to turn this page. I've got to turn this page. Next page may be ads. Next page may be more content. But no matter what, I've got to turn that page. Because something by the end of the story that this one page is so interesting that I've got to see what happens next. And so that smaller unit of measure is the only really significant difference to me between the two media.
This is the retention of making sure, the person is focused on the book no matter what's in front of them or behind them.
Right.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I want to get to one thing with the the one crossover that's being published by Marvel next month, where in the description, if I remember correctly, it said that Tony Stark and David are going to be comparing facial hair. I guess my question to you would be, did you have any surprises in terms of maybe you just found out two characters interacting were a lot more fun than you initially thought and whatnot?
No, I mean, first off, the comparing facial hair, that's something that some copywriter wrote. I don't know. I mean, Tony and David are in the book and they interact, and I think it's fun. And that was something I suggested, which is that, hey, it's a Fantastic Four crossover, but can I pull Iron Man in, for an extended cameo? Because Tony and David have so much in common, it'd be interesting to see them next to each other and see how they interact and see how they relate to each other. and they said yes. My Marvel editor said yes to that. So um, uh, again, it wasn't like a discovery. Oh my God, this is fun. It was. I just knew it would be fun. So I wanted to do that. You know, seeing uh, playing Broadway's concern for Angela against Sue's concern for Reed, that felt pretty natural. And so all of it plays out. I think, I mean, I don't want to scoop too much of the book with spoilers, but there's a lot of interesting inner dynamics between the two groups of characters, both in the Marvel book and in the Dynamite book. Um, and and so it was a lot of fun. I mean, the Dynamite book has Nash with Franklin and Valeria Richards. So seeing the three kids together was a lot of fun. And I knew it would be, and it was. So,
Right.
but nothing was sort of like, oh my God, I had no idea how much fun this would be. It was more like, no, I know this is going to be fun. Let me just do it. So that's what we did.
I mean, what can go wrong, right? When three of the most
I suppose
powerful...
a lot of things could go wrong. Nothing did go wrong.
You have godlike powers between those three alone, so it's like...
I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out.
This is I can't wait. It's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be super exciting to see Annihilus do something like you getting to write the negative zone with everything. I mean, just the thought.
What I will say is that both books are just jam-packed with characters. Both my editors, Michelle at Marvel and Nate at Dynamite, are like, whoa, you're sure using a lot of characters here. And they're just, so they're both jam-packed. And to me, that's just fun. You know, I think the stories are strong. And you get, you know, some heart into it, some action. But they are, without a doubt, just, they're crowded. These are two crowded stories. But then most of my stuff is, I mean, people are always, literally, always yelling at me, you got too many characters. And that was true in Spider-Man, the TV series, when I only had one lead. I just kept building the supporting cast up and up and up and up. And it was true in Spectacular Spider-Man, the comic book, and Young Justice certainly has a ton of characters. And Gargoyles, the whole series, the TV series and the comic that's followed, it just has a lot of characters. It's just a fact.
I mean, some of my favorite episodes from the TV shows that you have produced, like some of my favorites just have like 20 plus people in it, but you still managed to make me invested. So, I mean, I can't say you can't. I mean, if anyone could pull it off more than what it's worth, I think it's you, Greg.
Well, thanks.
But I'd like to get to a couple of questions in the chats and whatnot. A lot of amazing folks here. Thank you for joining us. With compliments too. Thank you, Greg, for Spectacular Spider-Man. I enjoyed it so much. Sad it's over, but happy it happened. Got Silhouetted Animator. Thank you for the super chat. Been a fan of you for ages, Weisman. Loving new Gargoyles comics and keeping up with the lore. Keep up the great work. Yeah, love your work. Thank you, Teva Smolka. So much, especially on Young Justice, was fantastic. Also, Spectacular Spider-Man. Your show is amazing. Thank you to Batman, who says, I remember when I was little, I had the Venom episodes of Spectacular Spider-Man DVD. So much nostalgia for Spectacular Spider-Man. We got a question from Patel Phillip. Thank you again for the super chat. Greg, what's the most iconic comic book to you?
I'm not sure what that means. You know, what comic's most iconic? I mean, I grew up on Marvel and DC comics and loved most of it, certainly as a kid. But I'm not sure what that question means, so I'm not sure how to answer it.
Maybe the one that means the most to you. Maybe we can spit it that way.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a single comic or a single series. I think there was an issue of Brave and the Bold back when pre-crisis, written by Alan Brenner,
Hmm.
that was Batman and Catwoman team up. Golden Age Batman and the Golden Age Catwoman team up. It was a flashback story, and and of course, in the Earth 2 continuity, Batman and Catwoman get married and have a daughter who becomes the Huntress. And this was sort of a prequel to all of that. And I just thought it was one of the most. I remember buying like multiple issues of that one comic book. And when people asked me, why do you read comics, I would give them that book. I'd give them a copy of that book and say, I used to know what number it was by heart. It was Brave and the Bold something, but it's been so long I can't remember now. But it was a great issue, written by Alan Brenner, drawn by Joe Staten.
It's a good creative team.
And Batman and Catwoman, Earth 2 Batman, Earth 2 Catwoman. That was probably, even to this day, probably my single favorite.
We'll have to unearth it for you. If anyone here is currently watching this in post, let us know down in the comments section so we can jog up the memories. Batman also says, Greg, just want to say I loved your characterization of Flash Thompson as a complex character. I thought the flashes of humanity you showed in Flash Thompson was great.
Yeah, I mean, Flash was a great character. We had Josh doing the voice of Flash, and he was fantastic, and he could make Flash be a supreme jerk one minute and then be a real human being the next minute and show all this vulnerability. It was, Flash was a supremely fun character to write. Just really great. But everything we did with him, again, goes back to the comics. Flash was sort of Peter's bully, but long term, he became a good friend to Peter. And so we sort of posited the idea that once upon a time, they had been friends like in nursery school. And that things went south when Peter's parents died. Flash distanced himself from Peter because his father had a dangerous job. And it scared him, the idea that your parents could die. And when you're a little kid, you think that kind of thing might even be contagious. So he sort of distanced himself from Peter, and then to sort of self-justify it, came to the conclusion that it was because Peter was a stuck-up egghead kind of kid. Once you get sort of past that, you grow through that. The one issue of Amazing Spider-Man that I wrote was a Flash Thompson story after he had lost his legs, I think in Afghanistan or Iraq. Can't remember. And I was really happy with that story. It was very sort of potent kind of thing, and really showed the friendship between Peter and Flash.
For sure. I want to say real quick that one of my favorite moments in the TV show was when Peter Parker got invited over to one of Flash's party, because his mom had known, like they were, childhood friends, sort of like, kind of grew apart as, Flash obviously became more the jock and Peter very much the outside looking in nerd. And the interaction that Flash has with his mom, and same with all of his associates and acquaintances, I thought was one of the funniest moments in the show by far.
It was a lot of fun. We also revealed how Flash got his nickname, and it wasn't because he was fast. It was because as a kid he liked to take his pants off and run around. And so we just had a photo on a chest of drawers that showed little baby Flash with a bare butt, and then and we'd gotten it approved, and then after the fact, they said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't show a butt." We're like, "It's a baby butt," and they're like, "You can't do it." So we had to put a flower in front of the photo, so you could still tell what it was, but you couldn't actually see the butt crack. But that was a great sort of moment in Flash Thompson history where you reveal that the name Flash comes because he was flashing everybody, not because he was fast.
Oh my goodness. So still superhuman and also still incredibly funny. At least in my mind to this day. Um Marvel Knight 2178 says, "Hey Greg, I absolutely love Catwoman Hunted. Really hope we get a sequel to it."
It was designed to be the first part of a trilogy of um, Catwoman, Talia al Ghul trilogy. The first part was Catwoman, the second part was Talia, and the third part was supposed to be the two of them up against each other. Um, and I think the problem there is that streaming has killed the DVD business. They're just Catwoman came out at the very tail end of the DVD business, and I get why people love streaming, but it's made making stuff harder. And so the plans to do it as the first of 3 movies in that animation style sort of fell away. And I'd love to do the next 2 movies. It'd be great. The second one is probably needs a little tweaking, but it's written. Third one's not written, but I know exactly what happens in it.
He's got the script.
And but it all went down because streaming killed the home entertainment business. The DVD, Blu-ray. It's just fundamentally all but dead.
Logan Wayne, good afternoon to you. Even though I read some issues here and there, watching SSM for the first time a few years ago made me pick up the first Amazing Spider-Man omnibus. Spectacular Spider-Man felt like such a love letter to the period, and I wanted more.
Yeah, I wanted more too.
I think all of us did, man. I think all of us did. Yeah, Nehemiah Lockett. Hi, Greg. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, huge Spider-Man fan. Got a chance, and I've got to read Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I'm very proud of the title. We did 15 issues. I think they really all turned out great, every single one. I would have loved to have kept going. I guess sales didn't support that, which is too bad. And I feel I let people down by not writing a book that more people wanted to get. But I personally was very happy with those stories, and I think the art is stellar. So yeah, please do pick it up. The trades of the first 5 and the second 5, I think, are out already. And I assume they'll put out the third 5.
Third one will come out
soon.
Let me see. You know what? Let me see if I can get a unique date on that real quick. If I can get the table loaded. But anyways, yeah, first 2 volumes. I know they've been solicited. It just a matter of the third one coming in about. Planet 628 says, I was 20 when Gargoyles came out. Every episode I caught mesmerized me. I used to buy the DVDs for my younger relatives.
Thanks.
Let's see if I can move in. Yeah, Rebellious Monkey 98. Thank you for the super chat. Hey there, Greg Weisman. I'm a big Spider-Man fan, and I love that you co-developed the Spectacular Spider-Man, one of my favorite shows, next to Gargoyles. And thank you so much for inspiring me a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, and another comment from Logan. As a millennial who watched Gargoyles as a kid, I can't tell you how happy I was when I discovered it was on Disney Plus and I got the service. Thank you for Gargoyles and so much more.
Thanks, Logan. Yeah, I was thrilled to see it be on Disney Plus also. It's great that it's there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Catwoman Hunted was terrific. I like that so many things were canon adjacent to Young Justice, especially the Green Lantern animated series.
Yeah, we were Brandon and I, Brandon Vietti and I, who produced Young Justice, were big fans of the Green Lantern animated series, and so in season 4, we thought, hey, let's bring in Razor. We had Jason Spizak, the voice of Razor, was our Forger and Kid Flash, and so it just seemed a natural to bring Razor in for an episode
Mm-hmm.
of YJ.
Indeed. Yeah, Tevye Smolka said, wait, it was supposed to be a trilogy for Catwoman Hunted? That sounded awesome.
It was, but now it's not. I don't know what to tell you.
Breaking my heart, man. I'm like, man, there's so many cool
Breaking
things.
your heart. That was money out of my pocket, man.
Greg, your interpretation of Rhino is still hilarious to this day.
Rhino is a lot of fun. Clancy Brown is so good as Rhino. I mean, he's good at everything.
What is he not good at? I can't
Yeah.
name you one thing that man cannot voice.
He's good at everything. I love Clancy. He's fantastic. But his Rhino just was hilarious. Just that one moment on the ice when he goes, I hate you so much. So funny. Right before he goes down into the water. Is so good. That's just that takes a good line of dialogue and just makes it stellar. That's what a good actor does for you.
Absolutely. DBZ All-Star, good afternoon to you, my friend. Greg, thank you for always being stellar, and thank you for always participating in these interviews. Do you have an end in mind for Gargoyles, or, like many of us hope, set to run as you see fit?
There is no end. It doesn't make sense for it to end. I guess it ends either when we stop selling, and so, or when Disney says to stop, or when I die. And even then, Disney could keep going without me because they own it. I don't. But yeah, there's no end. I mean, I've got a timeline that's, I don't know, something like 400 plus pages long, and maybe even more than that. I'm not even sure. And it ends. It goes all the way through the year 2199, and we're telling stories right now from 1997. So we've got a ways to go to get to anything that even vaguely is close to the end.
We got a long way to go there before I guess we maybe this is a sneak hint. Maybe if Marvel is listening, they'll allow you to do a Spider-Man 2099 and Gargoyles crossover set in 2198.
I'm game for almost anything. So,
what's your story of Harry Osborn's substance abuse inspired by the Stan Lee issues that covered that same topic?
Yeah, of course.
And Greg, your interpretation of Mysterio, Venom, and Doc Ock were also fun. Definitely love Doc Ock.
Again, great designs by Sean Galloway, great writing by my whole team of writers, and just great performances. I mean, Peter McNichol is so good as Doc Ock, and Ben Diskin as Venom, and Xander Berkeley as Mysterio. Those are just 3 phenomenal performers who take what we give them and then really bring it to life. It's great stuff.
Oh, for sure. And I think this will be the last question we cover in. Have you found it challenging to come back to the same franchise with different publishers and different mediums for Gargoyles? Is there a Time Dancer comic potentially coming down the line as well?
It's not. I wouldn't call it a challenge. As I said earlier, there's a different unit of measure doing television and a television episode and doing a single issue of a comic. I would say that given the density of Gargoyles stories, one issue of the comic equates with sort of one act of a TV episode. So it takes 3 acts, or I should say 3 issues, to tell the equivalent content worth of a single television episode. And so when I started doing comics of Gargoyles, or even comics of Young Justice, I was very much locked into this every 3 issues. I kept doing these 3-parters, beginning, middle, end, which was like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And when I got to Dynamite, after the first 3 issues, I was able, with issue 4, I think, to really break out and take advantage of comic books being a different format and not thinking so strictly in terms of one act, but weaving all these threads together across sort of a 12-issue arc to make it all come together. And that's been fun and a learning experience, but fun, because I started in comic books, then went into television, and then got so locked into this television structure that I started bringing television to comics, and that wasn't necessary. So I had to sort of unlearn some things, relearn other things, and go back to that. And that was a sort of a fun challenge. But but it's been great. I mean, it hasn't been like, oh no, I have to do this. It's like, oh great, I get to do this, and that makes all the difference. In terms of Time Dancer, this is all about the success of the overall Gargoyles line. The more, the better the comic sells, whether it's Demona or these crossovers or the next run of Gargoyles comics, the more likely Dynamite's going to say, hey, let's do another spin-off like Dark Ages or like Quest or like Demona. What could we do? And I usually pitch them 2 or 3 options, and they pitch. I think Time Dancer is a really likely positive option to do. It would be a lot of fun, and Brooklyn is a great character, and it's a great concept. But I don't, I never have to do anything I don't want to do, but that doesn't mean I get to do everything I want to do. There's still economics involved in this, and so for us to be able to do these things, the books have to continue to sell. And what that really means is pre-orders. When I was a kid, this was about how many books sold at the newsstand or even in the comic shops, but that's not the case anymore. Now it's all about pre-orders, whether you're doing it electronically or going to your store and getting a pull list and ordering the books in advance, saying, hey, please pull anything Gargoyles for me. Pull Gargoyles Demona, pull Gargoyles Fantastic Four, pull Gargoyles Darkwing, pull Gargoyles. So the stores are ordering more Gargoyles. Pre-orders is what comic books live and die on these days. It's not about what happens when you walk into the door. I'm not knocking it. If you walk in and you haven't pre-ordered Gargoyles and you see it on the stands, yes, please pick it up. But what really knocks it out of the park for us and sort of guarantees ongoing success for us is about pre-orders. And so if the sales stay high, and they've been good, I'm not complaining. They've been great, actually, on the Dynamite Gargoyle stuff. If those sales stay high, if the sales, for example, on the Marvel crossover, both for Dynamite and for Marvel, are high, that just encourages these companies to do more. And that's how we get to make Time Dancer down the road.
Okay, well, there you go, and thank you for the potential answer as far as what that is concerned. I think one thing that's just been a small theme with people in the chat, and also you've probably been asked this a billion times on everywhere you go, Greg. X-Men 97. Speaking of revivals, now that X-Men 97 is a success, person is curious if you've had a chance. If you had a chance for Spectacular Spider-Man to get a reboot at Disney Plus, would you do it? How would you do it, and would you do it?
I would do it in a heartbeat. In terms of how I would do it, I would just pick up where we left off. I mean, they could, in this day and age, streamers can just put the old episodes up. So if you want to see what came before, you just watch it. I mean, no mystery to it. You just click on that, show and you watch it. So I would pick up where we left off. And I guess you could title it Spectacular Spider-Man 2009 or something. I think there are difficulties for that happening in terms of who owns what vis-a-vis Sony and Marvel and Disney. I don't necessarily see that happening, but I'd love to do it. It'd be fantastic.
I think a lot of people would love that as well. And once again, I would like to thank Mr. Weisman, Greg, for his time here in talking about his brand new crossovers at both Dynamite and also Marvel. We'd like to thank all of our epic friends at Dynamite for also scheduling this out and helping us with this process. You can pick up the first of these two crossovers, which is the Fantastic Four and Gargoyles one shot. The one again published by Marvel at your local comic stop or any local retailer near you. That is going to be coming out on the 15th of October. And the one by Dynamite is coming out on the 5th of November of this year. So, again, please do not hesitate to tell your local comic shop to hopefully get one aside for you or to pick it up to help support Greg. And again, I want to thank you, Greg, for being super receptive of the time and the questions and all the awesome stories that you have told us about your work and what you have upcoming.
Well, thanks for having me on, Dom. I appreciate it.
And that is all from us, folks. I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed day wherever you might be. And please stay safe wherever you are.